Is the steward of the Known World Symposium in the Americas, Doña Ilhuicacihuatl de Xochimilco. And featuring a live performance by Caid's own Mistress Christiana Wintour. And me, I'm your announcer, Master Bjorn of the Northern Sea. And here's your host, Master Laertes McBride.
Good evening, everyone. Make that go away. How are you? Hope you're having a good evening. Thanks for joining us on our every other week episode of Live from Caid. I hope the past 2 weeks have treated you well. We're almost at the end of August. Crazy, isn't it? Before I bring Bjorn in and get to our first guest, just a couple of Caid-specific announcements. Just a reminder that letters of intent for Crown Tournament are due on September 5th. Please look on the Caid Facebook group page, or the page, and the requirements are listed out along with the information on where to send your letter. And that is for Crown Tourney, which is on the 25th of September in Dunor. Also coming up is Caid Rapier Open on Saturday, September 11th in the wonderful Shire of Bardic. And just a reminder that currently there's been a change, and that masks are required to be worn at events, both outdoor and indoor, unless the participant is eating, drinking, or fighting, or doing all three at the same time. So let's go ahead and bring Bjorn in right quick and see how he's doing. He's going to be here right now. Hey, Bjorn.
Hello, Laertes.
Oh, wow, you look so much taller. This is how we stand next to each other in real life, I think.
Well, honestly, if I don't have my chair situated at a certain point at a certain height, it's very difficult for me to get up. I'm at that age where knees and, even though I do have one hip and then I have the one bionic hip, and they don't always work in Congress. So, yeah.
Well, I think you need one of those chairs like in the Parade magazine that just kind of lifts you up.
I would love one of those. They just don't make those for computers. And because putting a Barca lounger or a lazy boy in front of a computer terminal, that just seems like the height of laziness at that point.
Right, and you can give it to the siege engineers, and they could amp up the motor and make it just kind of like a catapult. Awesome.
I mean, there's a Potrero conversation about that. That's for sure.
That's awesome. I feel like I've wandered off the main thread of conversation for the evening because everyone knows I love trebuchets. Anyway, so you've been doing well?
I have been. Next week is a meeting with my physicians, and then I will be having all of those fancy surgeries sometime in September, which will necessitate me not knowing exactly how connected with the rest of the world I'm going to be for a while, but I've done this 2 times before now, so this should be old hat. I just wish they'd use the same spots. They keep making more holes and more incisions, and eventually I'm just going to look like a Sudoku puzzle.
Right, and more holes mean more fun. So, what?
Talking about, sir.
Talking about the game Operation, where you just pull. No. Okay, I thought I saved it. Anyway, speaking of that, what do we have for the arts and sciences this week?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Let's make that segue, shall we? So, ladies and gentlemen, it is at this time of year where people are getting projects ready and they're starting to work on nifty things, but maybe you need a little bit of inspiration. And to that end, the first thing that I wanted to show everybody is actually a combination news article on the web and also an accompanying television spot from CBS.com or CBSnews.com rather. And it is about the ancient sculptures of the Greek and Roman world not being just alabaster marble white. I realize that many of us know this. In the SCA, we have long been the kind of folks that go, no, you can see that here's pigments and that they were therefore colored. And a lot of us that are of a certain age remember watching Rome on HBO and seeing how wonderfully we felt, and many of us, I think, did on getting these sculptures and the buildings right as far as color. There's so much of the different beautiful pigments that were used to make it a much more vibrant time than just the marble columns and statues that we see now. And this CBS News um, article and accompanying television program, they are a really nice gateway program for folks that didn't know that. But to be fair, even though it's just a couple weeks old, it really builds on a New Yorker article from 2018 called The Myth of Whiteness in Classical Culture. I bring this up not because I'm trying to throw my first website under the bus, rather to say that if you go to the New Yorker magazine and you look up the myth of whiteness in classical culture, it will be what I believe to be a more in-depth discussion. But it's also a couple of years old. So there are some things in the CBS report that are maybe a little bit more modern, but it does talk about how the reason why Leonardo or Michelangelo or Raphael, sculptures of the Renaissance, and other Ninja Turtles, the reason why they did what they did was because they didn't realize that a lot of these things had pigment on them. And so they were going for the form rather than any kind of function. But I recommend that you take a look at the cbsnews.com website, watch the spot. It's about 7 minutes long. And then if you have the chance, go ahead and take a look at the New Yorker article. I think it really will flesh out some things. And I bring this up as inspiration. I was talking before about getting things ready for pentathlon or getting things ready for war, getting things ready for this upcoming year, and you're not sure where to begin. Look at some beautiful masterworks. Many of us aren't masters in our own art form, we're just really good students, but this is a really neat way for you to look at stuff and get inspired. So that's the first website. The second website I want to talk about comes from the Smithsonian Magazine, and it talks about something that I thought would tie in wonderfully with the guest that we have coming on first. And it talks about the mound civilizations in Middle America. And Cahokia was a city kind of near where St. Louis is now. It's in southern Illinois, and it was the largest city north of Mexico for 300 or 400 years, well within our period, between, say, 1100 CE to about 1500 CE. It was a huge mound site, and really one of the most fantastic things to look at as you approached from any portion of the plains or crossing what we now call the Mississippi River. But a lot of that stuff was kind of buried. The information was subdued, and now we're just finally getting back into the understanding and knowledge that it wasn't just Plains Indians. It wasn't just native peoples along the coast or the peoples of the Pacific Northwest or the folks in Mesoamerica, pre-Columbian. There was a lot more going on. And so I think it's really going to be neat that you get a chance to look at that article and take a look for those few people who are really considering looking at a Mesoamerican or native period persona. It is a wonderful place to start for a specific era and a specific place. We hear a lot about the quote unquote Skraelings, which I'll see if I can ask about it, in Newfoundland and in Canada. And we know about all the wonderful things that were done unto the native folks in Central and South America with the Spaniards and the Portuguese coming in. But that big swath in the center also had a lot of things going on, and we did have contact with them prior to 1600. It's not as well documented. So I think that's a wonderful article from the Smithsonian Magazine for you to take a look at. And I hope that if you have any interest in it at all, look it up. But those are the two websites that we have for this week.
That's great. I did a quick little research while you were talking, and about the mysterious mounds, there's actually a follow-up article about the mysterious almond joy.
I knew you were going there.
Well, sometimes you feel like a nut. Anyway, so who do we have up for our first guest this evening?
Well, as I've said before, she says it's totally fine if we call her Doña Isma, but I've tried really hard to look at the name, to study the name, and Ilhuicacihuatl de Xochimilco is our guest, and she is going to be talking to us about the symposium for the Americas that's going to be done very soon. So I'm looking forward to hearing what she has to say.
Great, because I'm trying to book guests that each time I have a little bit harder name to pronounce for you. So seem to be doing well. Well, let's bring her on right quick. So she'll be here. Just a second. And she's going to be on right about now. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Excellent.
So, so I was perusing the Facebook the other day and saw the event announcement come out about this Known World Symposium of the Americas. And I thought it sounded like a kind of a fascinating opportunity to learn about aspects of history within the realms of the SCA that, most of us haven't experienced or been exposed to. So that's why I reached out. I appreciate you accepting our invitation to come on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk about it. It's kind of my baby.
That's awesome. So now, before we get into it, let's find out a little bit about you. So we're both in the SCA and like on Google. Where do you live?
Sure. I'm in the Kingdom of Atlantia in the Barony of Mistress, which is modernly Virginia Beach, Norfolk area.
Oh, I've been there. So.
Excellent.
It's nice, except for hurricane season.
I agree.
And how long have you been in the SCA?
I started coming to meetings about 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm a relatively new member, although it feels like I've been in for a long time.
Right. And okay, so before we go further, because I just remember, so how close did Bjorn get to pronouncing your name correctly?
Pretty close. I give people a lot of leeway. I appreciate mostly when people just give it a shot, but I am perfectly happy being called Doña Isma. That's not a problem at all.
Okay, so but can you pronounce your name correctly for the record?
I can, and I'm sure that some of the Noat speakers who are watching will probably also get up on me for saying it incorrectly, but my name is, as far as I can say it, is Ilhuicacihuatl de Xochimilco.
Nice. And if it were translated into English, is there a translation for what it is?
There is a rough translation. I've spoken to a couple of Aztec Empire scholars who say that the guess on what it means is a star woman or a woman who works in the sky.
Well, that's very cool.
And then Xochimilco is a suburb of Mexico City. It's it would have been a tributary state inside of the Aztec Empire at the time.
So you should move to Onstora and live in Stargate. So it kind of.
I'm actually from Houston. I'm originally from Stargate. I just did not play at the time that I lived there.
Yeah, I don't blame you for not claiming it anyway. I started in Onstora, I can say that. So it's in the language it's from?
Is Nahuatl, which was the most commonly spoken language in what we call the Aztec Empire. It's still a very common language today. It still has many thousands of speakers in Mexico and throughout Latin America.
Wow. So what drew you into the SCA?
Originally, I was just looking for something to do. My passion is definitely history. I went to school for history, and my husband used to be in the Navy, and we moved around all the time. And I was speaking to one of my friends. I was just like, I just need something to do that's kind of like history adjacent. I'm not necessarily excited to do like a full-on LARP. I just need a thing to do, a place to do my hobbies, a place to talk to people. And his first suggestion was, have you ever heard of the SCA? I had not. And the next week just happened to be a newcomers meeting in Mistress, and I showed up, and then I just didn't stop going.
Wow. Hold on, I gotta push this button. I take a week off and that's what I forget. And so you kind of just jumped in with both feet, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, pretty quick got involved. I started really enjoying the persona building aspect. I was at dinner with my Baron and Baroness, and I made a joke that my dream would be to have an Aztec persona, and they were like, just do it. And I was like,
Right.
oh, okay. And then I just did it, and that's how it started. A couple of years ago, I started a Facebook group called SCA New World Personas. Now we've
Mhm.
got about 200 members of people who are interested in Native and Indigenous history inside of period and portraying that accurately at events. And we've just been having a good time.
Now, did you always have an interest in that culture, or is it just something you've kind of expanded upon by being within the SCA?
Sure. So I actually am of mixed heritage. And unfortunately, it was something that my own family was not super, super excited about. It was one of those things where, you know, my dad had a very thick accent. My dad was an immigrant. He didn't necessarily want to advertise that fact all the time. And he was very, very proud of the fact that I did not speak Spanish. I didn't speak any other languages. And I had, that I, for all appearances, appeared white. And he was very proud of that. And so there was a part of my own heritage that I never got to explore. And I became very interested in it when I was doing my undergrad. And then just kind of decided to jump in and really start to dig and find more information to connect myself to my heritage through the SCA, and that has been really empowering.
That's fantastic. Now, I've been in the SCA maybe a little bit longer than you, and
A little bit.
by a multiple of 10. And through the years, I've had the opportunity to be adjacent or heard or seen. There was an armored fighter that embraced an Aztec warrior persona and armor, and he would wear it about. I think it was over more on the eastern half of the U.S. is where his stomping grounds were. I've seen pictures. I've never introduced to that. And then at a 25th year celebration, I just dated myself. There was a period like Plains Native American encampment where they set up appropriate for them an encampment and all and the garb and such. But I've never really seen on any large scale embracement of what your symposium is going to be highlighting. So do you feel like there's a, and we'll get to that in just a second, I'm just talking it through. Do you feel like there's a hesitancy because of the large focus on the European aspects of the SCA to really get this off the ground, or is it just because lack of knowledge and visible supporters is the reason we really don't have a lot of people in that area? I know that's a big, broad question, but
Sure, I'll try to tackle it as correctly as I can. I will say I have definitely had a number of people who are not enthusiastic that this is a thing that people want to pursue. I've been told kind of point blank on the internet that what I'm doing is irresponsible or bad for the society or any number of things. But the truth is, the overwhelming majority of people are super, super supportive of this kind of event. There have been smaller scale events that have kind of a Native or Indigenous theme in the past. I know that there have been some in Caid before, but they were smaller scale, small baronial events, and I think there were a couple in Trimaris. But this event, the Known World Symposium, is actually based in part on a Known World Symposium event that I put on in May of this year called Huapua. And we were very lucky to have 150 people show up on the day. We gave 26 hours of classes with teachers from 11 different kingdoms and participants from 17 different kingdoms. So I do feel like there is enthusiasm and excitement for it. It's just that for so long the SCA was European exclusive that there aren't a lot of people who know that they can do this thing. Every time I give a class at a university or another symposium, I always get the question of, is this really a thing I can do? And not only is the answer absolutely yes, but there is a support network within the kind of period America or New World personas community to kind of help you build a respectful and accurate portrayal of the culture that you're interested in.
That's fantastic. I have some other questions, but I'm sure I got to leave stuff for Bjorn. So let's move on to the
Sure.
symposium itself. Let's give a little details about it now. What are the dates and how can people access and such?
Absolutely. So the symposium is September 11th and 12th. It's starting as early as 6 a.m. on Saturday, and then we do have a pre-show or a pre-game Bardic on Friday night that will be hosted by Lord Tenoch from Anstiora. And we are hoping to have classes that kind of span time zones so that people from all over the world can participate. We had quite a few people from Drachenwald back in May. It feels like last year, back in May, who were quite sad to learn that most of the classes that we were offering back in May were not accessible to them time zone wise. This time we have expanded our hours from 6 a.m. all the way to midnight on Saturday, and then from 7 a.m. Sunday until about 4 p.m. These are Eastern time zones. I'm sorry, I should have probably clarified that.
That was my
Eastern
next
time.
question.
So a lot more people are going to be able to participate. Teachers from all over the world can come and do their thing. And we are still taking class submissions if you are interested. The site URL is a little bit long, but if you don't mind, oh, beautiful. That's exactly it. And I hope that if you will check it out, we are accepting classes until August 31st, just so that we can have a wide range of classes on a bunch of different topics.
And there's a Facebook page too, correct?
There is also a Facebook page. You can search Known World Symposium of the Americas.
It's almost like I was prepared.
Beautiful.
And then, okay, and now if people wanted to reach out directly to you, what's the best email to reach you at?
Sure. My email address is scaisma@gmail.com. I try very, very hard to respond within 24 hours. I have like seneschal rules in my brain. I respond in 24 hours in case it's an emergency. So please let me know if you have comments, concerns, or you want to know if your class would fit with the symposium.
Right. So they can reach out to you on this email address with
Absolutely.
Questions about the symposium if they want to teach, right?
Yes.
And you're having Bardic performances.
We are having a Bardic, yes.
And it's all within the overall reaching theme, of course, the Symposium of the Americas.
Right.
Right. So as long as you're kind of falling within a category,
yeah.
You'll make an opportunity to be highlighted.
Yeah, we are covering both North, Central, and South America. So if you are wanting to teach a class on a culture group that was primarily in those geographic areas, we'd love to have you.
And again, I'm just reading the blurb that was on the website. Is in addition to 2 full days of classes, you're going to have a theme, Bardic circle, and opportunities for ANS display and competition. And the classes will focus on indigenous and native cultures of the Americas, with special focus on instructors and players with the native heritage.
Mm-hmm.
So the ANS display and competition, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It is just a static display of ANS projects related to pre-17th century America. So if you do beading or cooking or pottery, and you would like to display your art in a fully New World period America-centric spot, we do have a form on the website where you can submit your photos and documentation, and we will show them off on our website. I have recruited a couple of laurels to help give constructive feedback on how you can make your documentation better specifically, so that your New World project can put its best foot forward in broader competition. Because I know that that's a big concern for people who do New World work, is how do we sell period America at a bigger competition level.
So that's fascinating. I'm gonna step away at this point and let Bjorn come in. Thank you so much, but I'll be back. That's more rewarding than anything else. But here we go.
First thing, I would just like to say thank you very much for joining us this evening. I greatly appreciate it. Now, mundanely, I grew up, and as you know, Laertes grew up in Texas, and I spent some of my formative years in Oklahoma. And so, for me at least, growing up, Native music was something that I was absolutely fascinated with, and based on the oral tradition, based on on what I got a chance to hear, it is just truly mesmerizing. But as such, only recently, within the last 25 years, I'd say, are we really having more scholarship that's accessible to folks outside of study. So, since you're having the themed Bardic, do you have folks that will be coming in and bringing a lot of the most recent information out there when they perform for folks, or is this more oral tradition music, or is it just a smattering of everything?
It is definitely a combination of both. We had a kind of Bards of the New World time at the Bardic War, during Bardic War, and we had such a spread of what kind of performances people had, whether it was heavily researched poetry out of the Aztec Empire, oral tradition stories of the Cree people of North America, or we had a flautist performing kind of pan flute music. And it was just like such a wide spread of things. And we don't have necessarily rules except that your piece should be inspired or informed by pre-17th century America, because there are so few places where explicitly New World period America music and stories can be performed. And we want it to be open and welcoming to people who maybe are just trying it out or who are nervous about bringing their culture into a bardic space. So I absolutely would welcome new performers who have not performed about their culture within an SCA space, or even somebody who's trying something completely new, to come and see what we have to offer.
Wonderful. As an aside, music when it was taught in Europe was, especially at the university or the college or whatever you're going to call it, was kind of split into two things: part of the trivium, where we get the term trivia, and quadrivium. So it was a philosophical thing, like what exactly is the physical properties of a string that's then halved. Well, it's an octave higher, and then also the actual statement of what music does and how it does. And I found that the Aztecs were very similar. They thought of music as on a philosophical level. But correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know, this information may not be available, but I was under the impression that the term for music isn't really music as more as it is song and types of song. So there are instruments that sing, people that sing. When you dance, you sing with your feet. Is that correct for the Aztecs?
I wish that I could tell you that. I am definitely not what I would consider a bard. I do perform music within the SCA, but not necessarily in a period America context. But the performances that we have had really kind of span between religious music and then also music that would have been more just kind of entertaining. So we do have a wide range of music that is performed within kind of the period America space, not necessarily just religious music or music meant for like ritual.
Well, I'm very excited to see all the other aspects now. Since I will go out of my wheelhouse as far as music, but mundanely, and also within the SCA, I do a bit of cooking and the like. Will there be an option, since there's so much that's going to be done online, for people to present some of their consumables, perhaps, so the documentation might be able to be looked at, the laurels that you've managed to get for this?
Yeah, I would absolutely love for people to submit food research or living history projects to try and capture what food would have looked like in North, South, and Central America, because there is such a different culinary heritage compared to Europe, obviously. And the combination of the virtual space and food is complicated, but I do think it is doable. One of the things that I have really enjoyed from kind of the New World Personas group and some of our group chats has been people just taking the time to try a bunch of different things to get the right consistency or the right feeling for things like the Aztec chocolate drink that everybody asks about. Every time I do a thing about the Aztec Mexica people, they're always just like, and the chocolate drink, right? Like the frothy chocolate drink. Well, there are so many people trying to get like what does this froth look like? What is the right combination of sweetness and bitterness? And watching people have the time inside of this kind of pandemic environment to really try a lot of different things and document all of the different things that they've tried has been very interesting. And I would love to see people submit their work, trying to get things to feel as authentic as possible.
I have to admit that I think the indigenous peoples of the day would definitely have enjoyed the use of an immersion blender, because I tried to froth one of those drinks with the stemmed
Yes.
whisk. Essentially, it is not easy to do that,
No.
man. That is some challenging. And then I broke down, got out the immersion blender. There it is.
I have tried both the stick blender and also pouring it from on high. Like pouring it from things. I have not gotten it right yet, but I believe that someone out there has. I believe in them.
I hope so. I tried the pouring from a great height thing, and I just proceeded to make a mess. So I knew my limitations. The last thing I wanted to talk about is that Laertes is sort of had the information about the encampments that have happened, usually at larger events, Pennsic, Gulf Wars, places like that, Lilies. And so when someone is interested in the full kit of a Mesoamerican person, someone from the Yucatan, someone from the plains, one of the mound building cultures, where do they go? Beyond the Facebook page, which is a wonderful resource, what other places can they go to look at this information to grasp part of this culture?
Sure. I'd start by saying that one of the big problems with kind of the period America New World banner is that the culture groups that we have represented are wildly different, and what is available for these cultures changes quite a lot. So what is available for, quote, the Aztec Empire is very, very different than what is available for a smaller culture group, say in Canada. And so you have to really first narrow down which culture group you're looking at, what geographic region you're interested in, and then you can really start to dig deep there. So for instance, for the Aztec Empire, I would say the first thing you should try to look at are the codices, which they have their own problems. You can read all about which particular codexes seem more authentic to the pre-colonial time period versus which ones are definitely more Spanish influenced, and that's a whole can of worms for you. But those are documents that you can look at that have full color illustrations if you are looking to design your garb. I would also strongly recommend that, especially if you're looking at a North American group, to get in contact with the living people of these cultures, because one of the things that we're always trying to emphasize is that these aren't dead cultures. These cultures haven't disappeared. If you're interested in any of these groups, there is usually a living ancestor of these groups, and many of these tribes have dedicated websites, dedicated organizations where they can share information, help you navigate what is appropriate and what isn't, depending on the closed or open nature of their specific culture group. So I would definitely say to get in touch with the living tribes, either in the area of the group that you are interested in or online, and see what they have to offer. They're a great resource.
Wonderful, thank you. And my last question is about so I find it problematic to ask, but I want to mention it. Many of the treatises and books that we have on the native peoples of the Americas were written in the same way that Caesar wrote about the Britons. It's definitely sensationalized, and some of it's exaggerated, and some of it is just lies. So, for example, a lot of the Franciscan historians, a lot of the people from Spain and Portugal, when they wrote with a definite bent. But I'm sure there is some valid information there. How do people go about gleaning through these documents while still acknowledging there's some troublesome information.
Yeah, I mean, once you start from the outlook that, maybe not all of this is perfect, I think you've already taken a first big step. But my suggestion for how to know what is accurate versus what is exaggerated is to spend some time with the archaeological data that exists. Not every tribe, not every culture group has particularly accessible or particularly extensive archaeological data, but many of them do. And there are, like I've said before, organizations within either the living tribes of those people or just in the geographical area, museums and libraries that specialize in the history of their area, who can do a lot to help you identify what inside of these various tristes and codices, what in there is supported by archaeological digs or by the oral histories that have been collected from these tribes. So I would say that they do have value. They're not perfect, but I do think they can help you understand a couple of different things. One, if you can look past the biases that are, I think, inherent in the way that some of them were written, you can start to see ideas of what you might like about a specific culture group for the purposes of reenactment. And two, you can also see what that cultural exchange looked like. The cultural exchange between Europeans and Native people took place within period, and it is a valid subject of study to see what those two groups who were very different were like as they started to blend together, for good or ill. And we do have one class that's coming up at the symposium that specifically talks about that blending, which I think is very helpful to attend. It's Mistress Beatrice's class on colonialization in Mexico.
Thank you very much for that. My first interaction with the earliest tamale recipe was actually written by a friar who, towards the end of his writings, determined that what they were doing to the native people was abhorrent. And then when he passed away, the church saw these documents and decided not to publish them. So even though they are period acknowledgments of what was being done, and he became such a wonderful lover of the culture, and then he passed away, and the church looked at the books and was like, oh, we can't publish this. It's going to make people think we're monsters. Well, newsflash. So that book wasn't actually published until, I think, the 19th century. So that was my first foray into that music, into music and the culture and the culinary stuff, was from someone going, these are wonderful people, we shouldn't be here. And that's why it wasn't published. But I just wanted to say thank you so very much for bringing an aspect of pre-17th century culture forward that my ancestors first met what they called Skraelings, in Newfoundland. And it's still the only place in North America where we have any proof of Scandinavian habitation. And yet we have more information about what happened in Lanza Meadows than we do about all of the mound building peoples of Middle America. And it's just geographically, that makes no sense, but there it is. So to see that information being brought forward, I thank you so very much, Doña, for both presenting this symposium and for putting in all of the work to get these various people together, because this is going to be fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where you go with it. But I wanted to thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for bringing us on. Part of the whole process has really been getting people to just take us seriously, come to the event, take a look. You're going to find things you like once you get here.
But I thank you very much, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Laertes.
I'm coming. Hello. Hi. So I had one question before we go into the silly stuff. So this is all going to be on Zoom, I assume?
Yes, it will be on Zoom, and all of the links will be on that website starting the day before the event.
And then are these going to be recorded so that we can come back to them afterwards, or what's the plan for that?
About 90% of the classes are going to be recorded. If you want a taste of what we were doing before, the classes that were taught at the May symposium are available on my Barony's YouTube channel. It's Barony of Marinus. If you just search for that on YouTube, you'll find it. And you'll see a lot of the classes that were taught before. We're having a lot of sequels to those classes, a lot of updates to those classes that are being presented this time around, but about 90% of them will be recorded and will be available either same day or next day.
Cool. That's fantastic. Yeah, there's a big rapier event out here in Caid on that Saturday. So
it's a popular weekend.
Yeah, thank you. It's almost like we've been trapped in houses for a long time. All right, so let me get set here. So now's the part of the show which we enjoy, but maybe not the guests, where we kind of do a trivia game related to what we've been talking about. So Bjorn, yeah, I can see the excitement in your face.
So excited.
Bjorn, what is the name of the game for this show?
Doña Isma's game is My People Call It Maze.
Okay, so
okay.
I wanted to do one where you had to tell me what the English translation was for different names for stuff was, but no. What we're going to do is I have fruits and vegetables, and you're going to tell me, it's 50-50 chance whether it is native to North, Central, or South America or not, because we're all about native to the Americas. So I thought this. Yeah, it's a stretch, but anyway.
All right, let's go.
All right, so we're ready. So how about let's see. We'll start with an easy one. Rocky Mountain Douglas fir. Is that native to the Americas or not?
Yeah.
Oh, well, of
native
course.
to the Americas.
I mean, duh.
Sure.
So that's what we're doing. How about Concord grapes?
No, that's not native to the Americas.
Actually, it is. It's one of 6 native grape types.
Great.
And from what I found out, it's really the only edible version that we have here, or that we can cultivate and make stuff up. So Welch's will be very disappointed you didn't know that. How about carrots? Carrots.
Not native to the Americas.
That's correct. They came to us from Europe. So sassafras.
Native to the Americas.
That is true. There is a species of sassafras that is native to North America, and actually, indigenous people used it for flavoring foods and herbal remedies, and of course to provide root beer flavor.
Of course.
Yeah, and and I've got a trait. It's in Cajun and Creole gumbos. So I love me some gumbo. Okay, so that's very nice. How about the potato?
Native to the Americas.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yes.
Do you know where it originated at?
Somewhere in South America.
You are correct. And what is now Peru?
Oh, I have some South American persona people who are going to be so proud of me for knowing that.
How about potato? How about avocado?
Native to the Americas.
You are correct.
100%.
And the Mayans even used a glyph of an avocado to represent the 14th month on their calendar. So, like, we need 2 more months. How about celery? Celery.
Not native to the Americas?
That's correct. Do you have a guess of what region?
Not a clue.
I would have never guessed this. It's Middle East.
Oh, wow. No, I would not have guessed that.
Okra.
Okra. Native to the Americas?
No. It's from Africa, of all places. But I when I go back to Texas, I always have to get fried okra. So
same.
Yeah, I'm sure people were curious. Okay, we'll do a couple more. How about cranberries? Cranberries.
Native to the Americas?
That is correct. Native to Canada and the Eastern Seaboard, actually. 2 more. Okay, since we started with it, corn, or as my people call it, maize.
Native to the Americas.
That's right. Do you remember those commercials? You don't remember those commercials.
Not at all.
Yeah. What was that, Bjorn? What product was that?
Oh my gosh! If you'd hadn't asked, I could have probably told you. But yeah, those weren't those like '70s commercials.
Yeah,
I don't even believe
I believe they were in
Elizabeth
color at
was
least.
alive then.
My mom graduated high school in 1973.
Oh, okay. Well, I remember that.
It's been a while.
Okay, we got. Let's do. What else do I got? Oh, okay. We'll do. I may have said this before. We're going to do two more. Okay, so mangoes. Mangoes.
Not native to the Americas.
Correct. Do you have a guess where they're at?
Southeast Asia.
Close. India.
Close.
Close. And we'll end this with wild yams. Wild yams.
Wild yams. Native to the Americas.
There is a version of that is native to Eastern North America. Most of them came from Europe, from Papua New Guinea, but there is a version that is popular around us. So.
I feel pretty confident in those answers. I feel pretty good about it.
You did really good. I mean, there's some others, but very nice. So you rank up there over the past year or so of people. So and very impressive. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. Really do appreciate it. The one thing I would like to say is, the SCA is a very big tent organization. That's why the governing documents are such broadly worded, so they can embrace people and allow people to find their passions and interest and pursue it and learn and share that knowledge and passion that they have. I think this is a grand opportunity to expand the knowledge and the cultural awareness of the people within the SCA. I mean, I applaud you for trying to pick up this gauntlet and spread that love for what was going on here in the Americas at the same time that we're studying everything else. The Europeans that came over definitely, they were exposed to this too. So it's not like it was happening in a vacuum. So thank you so much. This is fascinating. I'm going to take an opportunity to look at the stuff that's recorded because I'm a little bit busy on that day. But let's put up that website one last time. And you're definitely looking for teachers and performers and artisans to join in, correct?
Absolutely. We're going to be accepting submissions until August 31st.
And the date of this again
is September 11th and 12th.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
You're very welcome.
Best of luck. And if there's anything else we can do for y'all, just let us know. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You as well.
Bye-bye. Hello? Hi, it's being finicky. Let's try this again. Hey, let's bring Bjorn in too. Hey, Bjorn. That was weird.
Time stopped.
Time stopped. It sounds so interesting, and it really does open up a whole new world to explore within the SCA, because I've always seen it very fringy, over the years that I've been around.
I agree. I think I'm looking forward to seeing, because it is a small, tight-knit community, as she says, about 200 practitioners SCA wide, but still some of the things that you've mentioned, that I've mentioned, that we've seen at Great Wars and the like, there's been some phenomenal scholarship and research that goes into those personas, and I'm all for it. I'm looking forward to seeing what else is done in the field. So I'm looking forward to it.
It should be great. And speaking of looking forward to something, who do we have coming up next?
Oh my goodness. Caid treasure, Mistress Caitlin, is going to be joining us. Just one of the best dramatists there is. And so I'm very excited to have her with us.
All righty, let's bring her on. She's been very patient. So she'll be here in just a moment. Oh, I hear her laughing. Hello.
Hello, Laertes. Perfectly all right. I didn't have to be patient about anything. That was fascinating.
Oh, it sounds fascinating. How have you been?
Well, stuck in my little house doing my little work, because thank God I already worked remotely when the pandemic started. Very much looking forward to returning to actual live SCA things so I can see my friends face to face. But in the meantime, these are wonderful. I'm glad to be part of it.
Well, since the last time we saw you, have you? What have you been doing with your time? Basically, have you been
Well,
writing?
working, because I still work for myself. And I save the world a lot on video games. And my
Oh,
church opened, yes, that's very important. And my church opened back up. So at least my Sunday mornings, I have something to do besides work. But
fantastic.
in October, I'm actually heading back east, not only to visit a very dear friend in Pennsylvania, but to visit places in Tennessee, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, where my novels are set. 3 out of my 4 novels are set back in the eastern United States. Supernatural thrillers with a sense of humor and a Christian bent is how I describe them. So that's going to be thrilling to see the places where I put the monsters. I can't wait.
I should have had a book and just held it up. And read
I
something.
truly should have.
That's fantastic. Tennessee, are you going to go to Graceland? No.
You know what? I'm going to be closer there. I actually grew up in Memphis, but we were kids,
Mm-hmm.
and who gets much time to move around. But I'm visiting Gatlinburg, not for Dollywood though, as much as I love her, but in order to see the places in the book, which are up in
Right.
the Appalachians at a ghost town called Elkmont that you can still see today. And that was real. And then the West Virginia one, which will be on the end of the trip, I'll sort of be doing a beep, beep. With the West Virginia, I'll be doing not spelunking, but cave tours and mines, because caves and mines figure very prominently in that one, which is the Shadow Eaters. I had Wendigos boiling around inside the mines. And then the book I'm writing right now, which is called Harvest, takes place in Pennsylvania, just 10 minutes away from Titusville, which is where I'm going to see my friend. So that's a ghost town where the Pennsylvania Dutch are really, don't quote me, but pretty, some places very remotely are really very strange still. And in the
Mhm.
1920s, where my books are set, there's some really very strange things coming in, including the occult from Germany that happened between World Wars One and Two. So that's going to be just wonderful to see it. That's coming out around Halloween.
Man, that's so exciting. And you know what? It sounds like you can write it off as a business trip.
Yeah,
So why not? Thank you again for joining us once again.
my
So
pleasure.
what piece do you have to perform for us this evening?
Well, this is now. I'm certainly a storyteller and to a lesser extent an actress. 'Cause it's a little harder to mount a theater production than it is just to pull out a story. But I do both. I also, however, teach history, and I try which is story, true story, but story. And I try to bring every ounce of craziness and chewing the scenery that I know I do to history as well as made up stories. So today, just going to do it about 5 minutes, it's not long, but I'm going to be talking as Mistress Caitlin about an event that for her happened 100 years ago, still affects her every day, which is the Battle of Hastings and William the Conqueror. But it's a story every bit as thrilling as anything I have ever heard, and I'm glad to tell it.
Great. Well, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. I'm Mistress Caitlin. It soon will be the 100-year anniversary of a story that changed my world and many others. I mostly tell stories about the borderlands, those strange places that are a glimmering crossroads in the evening, the dark edge of an ancient forest, the heavy smell of a salt marsh. These are real in that they are strange, and not everyone who brave
Well, that was a much shorter performance than we were planning on. Can you hear me, Bjorn?
Yeah, I hear you. I've been sending you a message. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Are you there?
We can. We don't see you anymore. All right. We will wait. Please proceed. Oh. Something. Well, let's see what's going on. Let's see. Bjorn's coming back in just a moment. Seems to be a slight issue. Hey, Bjorn.
Yes, sir.
Mistress Caitlin, I think that's probably the best. Is let's just reschedule you for the next time we're on, and we'll get this straightened out.
So twice the Caitlin. I'm very excited about that.
I know. I don't know how it ends.
Me neither. We just got started.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry we can't see you. This is very odd. Well, have a great evening. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. That's weird. It's like a disembodied voice. So, well, I appreciate her being so understanding and the viewers being understanding too. We will address this and have it fixed for next time. Just so you know, our schedule is a little fluid for September. I do know that we're taking off September 6th for the holiday, and we will be showing What Is It? Episode 2. So I hope you enjoyed the first one. If not, check it out in our YouTube channel. Bjorn, my friend, please keep me informed on how things are progressing for you.
I certainly will. Although I can say now with 100% certainty that our next Bardic guest will be Mistress Caitlin. So I'm very excited for that.
That's true. And I will say that I'm still working on someone a little fluid on the weeks. So thank you for continuing watching. Bjorn, it's good to see you. I will be talking to you later.
Yes, sir.
And everyone else that was joining us and stuck around for our technical difficulties, be sure to join us whenever it is the next time. And once again, we will be live from Caid.
Caid.
We'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.